dirty hands. Dirty hands are the best because that means I'm digging in the dirt, I'm planting stuff, I'm cleaning up, I'm weeding, and we really got a lot done this weekend. So in the last video, I promised you guys I'm gonna do a garden tour and I'm gonna show you around what we're growing, and this is it. So I'm gonna show you around what we've got going on, and what I'm really excited about this year is that I'm growing what we're eating. Welcome back to Hidden Oaks Homestead. We are finally spending some real time out in the garden, and this is definitely my happy place. I love spending time out here and getting my hands dirty. I haven't even, look at that, dirty hands. Mother Nature kind of threw us a curveball last weekend with a pretty good storm. I guess they called it a tropical depression. We had some really rough straight line winds that pulled down a bunch of our trees, and we spent this weekend cleaning up. We spent all weekend cleaning up, getting things ready for some workshops that we're gonna start doing here on the farm. We got a lot of stuff done in the garden, and it's starting to look pretty nice around here. I mean, I might be biased, but I'm pretty proud of what we've done this weekend. We put a lot of work into it, and these are my favorite weekends around here. Just being able to be outside all day long, work together as a family, take care of the animals, take care of the garden, clean up. Those are my favorite weekends of all. Even though obviously we had a little bit more work on our table this weekend because we had trees and limbs down and all kind of other stuff going on with that storm, we got a lot done, and I'm proud of my family. Last year's spring garden, I had all the best intentions, I had big plans, and unfortunately a lot of those didn't pan out the way I wanted to. The tomatoes didn't do as well, the potatoes didn't do as well, and in general, just because I was gone a lot last year, the garden did not do as well as I wanted it to. So this year, knowing that I'm gonna be gone a lot again for work trips, I'm attempting to only grow what we're eating, not what we're growing, obviously what we're growing, but what we're eating, and to be able to manage it in a way where while I'm gone, it doesn't need any maintenance. First off, I did not start as many plants as I did last year, which means I have less plants to transplant and to maintain. However, there are a few things that I planted more of than last year that I am hoping to be able to preserve as much as possible in order to feed the family for a whole year. One of those crops are potatoes this year. I only planted 2 rows of potatoes last year, and unfortunately I planted them too late, which meant they got a lot of the wet season already in their growing and meant that they rotted in the ground. This year, I actually got them into the ground around Valentine's Day weekend, which supposedly in this area is the planting date for potatoes. So I am excited to see what happens. I did a little practice dig the other day to see how they are developing, and they are developing, which is great. And in the next couple of weeks, I should be able to dig them up and then get them to can them away and eat them fresh, and I'm super excited about the potatoes. Another thing we're doing different this year is tomatoes. Last year I planted all of them in the ground, and I had landscape fabric down, which in our case meant a lot of the nutrients got washed out and the ground got really, really hard, so it made it hard for the tomatoes to develop. This year I did a lot of ground loosening, and where I planted the tomatoes in the ground, we have beautiful soil, lots of worms, a lot of worm castings, and they should do beautifully in the ground that I actually planted them. In addition, I also planted some in the raised beds because I am doing limited growing this year. I'm doing tomatoes, I'm doing peppers, and I'm doing a lot of herbs this year as well because they don't need a whole lot of maintenance, and because I'm going home this year for a month, Chip is going to have to take care of everything by himself. So that means I'm trying to make it as easy on him as possible while I'm gone, because I don't want to put a lot of work into something that is not going to get maintained or harvested while I'm gone. So I need to plan everything out this year that I can either harvest it before I leave, or it doesn't need a whole lot of maintenance while I'm gone and I can harvest after we get back. We're doing irrigation a little bit different this year too. Last year we had some drip tape down and it ended up really not working out for us very well because we had a lot of rain and it washed a lot out. Will it work this year? I don't know, but we pulled all the drip irrigation up and we're running a sprinkler or two that should do the trick, because once wet season arrives and hurricane season arrives, we shouldn't really have to water the garden anyway. We should be good to go. So it's really just about establishing the plants, get them in the ground, make sure the roots establish, and water them through that stage. Bugs in my eye. And then they should be good to go with maybe once a week deep watering. And if we're playing our cards right with Mother Nature and it rains enough, we won't have to water at all. There's a couple of big plants that I'm still working on. The seeding area that I wanted to establish last summer, well, it's still not there. So maybe I'll get to it this summer. We shall see. But I put a couple more raised beds in place. I pulled up some raised beds to hopefully put them in their final resting place in the garden. I'm thinking that the way that the sun is moving across our garden, where they are now with the trellises, should be a great place for them. And this year I'm putting on those trellises, what am I putting on them? Cucumbers, peas, beans, and loofah. So those are the big things that I'm planting with trellises this year. I am trying out a different trellis system for the tomatoes. Again, I don't think I've done the same trellis 2 years in a row. I started with some towers, some tomato cages, then I moved to the Florida weave, then I did some other trellis the other year, and this year I'm going with a system that my friend David the Good is using, and I think he's calling it the trellis to make you jealous, and he found it from somebody else. So I'm gonna see if I can find that video and link it for you guys. But it's basically T-posts, some conduit, and some T-fittings, and that thing should last forever and hold up for some really good weight as well. So I'm excited to try that out because I should be able to reuse that next year, but it'll be our first year trying this one out. My big goal in the garden is to grow stuff that doesn't need a lot of maintenance, and ideally I want to put as many perennials in place as possible. So that means an orchard, it means berries, it means planting things that are coming back every year. Now with Florida weather, there are certain things that we are able to grow all year long where we don't have any issues, and we can maybe get 2 or 3 crops out every year depending on how these things have adjusted to the growing seasons here. And then there are certain things that just won't make it here. Some of the things that don't do very well in the climate here are cherries and plums. Peaches are not great for around here. So there's definitely a learning process there on what grows well, what doesn't grow well, and what I would like to grow. So there's definitely some things that I would love to have here and grow here because I really love to eat it, but we just don't have the climate to grow it here. Some of the things are mangoes, plums that I would really love to grow here, but they just don't do well. So I'm trying to get to a place where I grow a bunch of stuff that we still eat as a family. I'm trying to move us as a family to things and eating things that we actually can grow as much as possible. Now, we still go to the grocery store for things that we really love to eat and we can't grow, but I'd love to minimize that as much as possible. I am super proud of these plant babies. These are zinnias coming up that where we saved seeds last year. So just know you can save your own seeds and grow stuff. We're growing things with different systems. We have our in-ground garden, we have our raised bed garden, we have our trellises, and then of course we have our trees that we grow in the orchard. So there are different systems that we're using for different things, and there's also different things that we're trying out. Right now, I'm almost through with my potatoes. They are slowly starting to bloom. My friends at Perry Hill Farm told me to wait harvesting until they die off. That's the best time to harvest them to maximize the size of the potatoes. So we're gonna wait on that. We just put sweet potatoes in the ground today, and then once the potatoes come up, we're gonna go through with some rabbit poop to get some nutrition back in the ground, and we're gonna grow our okra, we're gonna grow our roselle, because those are staples in my garden now that we live here in Florida, and then those can grow while I'm out of town. By the time we get back from my mom's house in Germany, those things should be a good size and start ready to pull some okra off of those plants. Another thing that we're doing around here is we are digging up some native plants that are growing all over the place on our land and replanting them where it's a little bit more convenient for us. One of the things that I love to do is I love to go out into the woods and forage, but I would like to bring some of the stuff that grows out in the woods closer to the garden as well, because one of the things we're doing here is we're going to start doing some workshops on the farm, and the more convenient we have plants here closer to the house, the better for people to access them and learning how to identify them. So as I'm going out there and I'm identifying shrubs and trees, I have dug a few up, and I am working on getting them established with a good root system so that I can put them in the ground. So we have rehomed lots of elderberry. We are working on some mimosa trees. I have worked on a few magnolias as well, which are great trees here in the south that do really well. And there's actually a native nursery not too far from us. They're about 2.5 hours from us that is selling native plants. So that is one of the big things that I'm focusing on moving into the next gardening seasons for us, is to try to grow as much local and native species as possible around here. So we moved a couple of beds around and added trellises, and back here we had raised beds and trellises last year. We cleared everything out, and this is a repurposed rabbit hutch, and we're gonna put, you see the white poles right there? We staked out for a greenhouse. So I'm super excited about that. Am I done with my garden and my garden design and laying it out the way I want to? Is this the final for all the gardening beds? I don't know yet, but for now I'm happy with the setup that we have. I'm looking forward to adding a couple more things this year and over the next couple of years as we have time, and I'm looking forward to grow as much as possible of our food as we can, to be able to preserve it, but also I love to cook with fresh products from the garden. That is probably my favorite. So overall, my garden is going to evolve over the years. I'm sure it's going to look different every year, but as I'm getting established here in growing zone 8B, I'm really learning about what's growing well, what I need to plant when, where, and still every year I'm sure my garden is going to be different and work out different, because you just never know. You cannot control Mother Nature. So if you've been growing something successfully for 10 years and then it doesn't work out this year, that doesn't mean you turned into a bad gardener. It just means your conditions have changed. So give yourself some grace, try again, and try something new, and have fun in the garden. Get your hands dirty and dig some holes, plant some trees, and grow some food.